Thank you, my friend. All right, I can see everyone is getting connected to audio right now, so I'm going to give it just a moment to make sure everybody can hear and is connected to their cameras. All right. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the first year seminar today. This is our last seminar of the spring semester. It's kind of hard to believe that we're already that far along at this point, but we chose to make this the last one because I know that as of next week, everyone will really start gearing up for finals and start getting really busy. And we want everyone to be able to use that time at their discretion and get to the point where we can get through finals and start enjoying the summertime. So thank you so much for coming. Today we have our seminar all about financial literacy. And Viktoria Rill from Human Resources here at Illinois Tech is here to chat all about some things that you probably just need to start thinking about and learning about while you're in undergrad and starting to plan for your careers. So I'm going to turn it over to Viktoria. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, sure. Thanks for having me. As I have said to Marky and anybody else, I am happy to talk about this kind of thing anytime with anyone who will listen. I have tried to keep this as a high level overview. I'll try not to get too long winded, but I'll try and save some time for questions at the end. And of course, anybody here is welcome to contact me directly, contact anybody else in HR directly, and all of that. So what I will talk about today is first I'll do kind of high level overview on when you get your first job, salary, negotiating salary, what to think about in terms of benefits so you have a complete picture of your total rewards package. Um, Once you've got income coming in, what other kind of basic financial literacy things do you need to think about? Or, even before you get your first job, what can you do now to set yourself up for financial success in the future? And then, big piece, saving for retirement. I know, everybody here is a first year student. You guys are probably all like 18 or 19 years old. Retirement may seem like a very long way off, but I can tell you it's never too early to start saving for retirement. So a little bit to think about as you approach your first job, and what kind of things to think about as far as that goes. So fast forward 2, 3 years from now, everybody here is getting ready to graduate. You are applying for positions, you are evaluating different job offers that are coming in for you. What all do you look at? A lot of people focus only on salary, but there's a lot more to take into account. If we are looking into salary, things that you want to think about, um, you know, you want to be number one, familiar with the salary range for the job you are applying for, or the different jobs that offers that are coming in. Um, you can use there are plenty of free tools out there like salary.com, payscale.com. Just Google salary comparison tool, and a number of things will come up. You want to, as you're looking at different offers that come in, be familiar with the range of the position. Salary.com is I think, one of the easiest tools to use. It will allow you to filter for years of experience and your geographic location. Someplace like Kansas City is going to have a lower cost of living than someplace like Chicago. So as the salary range in Kansas will be different than it is in Chicago. Um, by the same token, you look at someplace like Silicon Valley, the salaries are going to be higher because the cost of living out there is so much higher. So be familiar as these job offers are coming in with that salary range. You want to think about things like you're not going to have a whole lot of experience. So you're going to see a wide salary range, but if you're offered a salary that's toward the bottom of that range, that's nothing to scoff at. That's a starting point. You're going to be at a starting point for your first job. Um, Also, keep in mind that depending on the industry that you're in, you're going to see a pretty wide variance there as well. That may not be something that an online tool like salary.com is going to be able to tell you, but as you make connections in the industry, that's something that you might be able to ask people in your network. Um, for example, if you're looking at an industry like financial services, that industry tends to have plenty of money. Or if you are looking at the legal industry, those are types of industries where your salary is probably going to be higher. Whereas if you're looking at nonprofit employers, those are going to be a little bit on the lower end of the salary scale. That being said, my next point, get a complete picture of the salary and benefits package. Don't let salary be the only number that you look at. There are other things that you want to consider. Um, in addition to that base salary number itself, you want to look at, is the position bonus eligible? Now, not all industries pay bonuses, but some do. If the position is bonus eligible, how what does that bonus look like? Is this, a staff position that might be, a small few $1,000s worth of a bonus every year? Or are you in an industry that tends to pay, 10, 15, 20% of your annual salary in bonuses every year? That's a really big consideration. Is there a signing bonus? Again, not a whole lot of industries do that, but that's something to consider. Um, how generous is the retirement plan match? And I'll touch more on that later, but does the employer match 5, 6, 7, 8%? When does that start? Is it automatic? If the employer has a really generous match, that's another big consideration in terms of salary. If one position pays $2,000 less, but the employer matches 10%, then in the long run, you're really going to come out ahead at that employer that has that more generous retirement match. And then another big component is, health plan contributions. Are you going to be enrolling in the health plan? And if so, what does your contribution look like? Does the employer pick up the entire cost of employee contributions? Or, are you going to be paying $200-300 a month for your own premiums? Because that can be a big factor as well. Other more kind of nuanced things that you can keep in mind as you negotiate for your first job, as you ask about things like this once you get those job offers. And important thing to talk about, these are things that you want to really look at once you get a job offer. You can always ask when you have your interview what the range is like, but you want to keep that negotiation piece down the line for when you do get that job offer. Once that does happen, another thing to know about is, when do salary increases typically happen? Do they happen every year? Is there a normal amount? Does everybody get 2%? And then if you do a good job, you get another few percent? Or are salary increases really rare and you have to get a promotion in order to get that increase? And then don't be afraid to be flexible. If you get this job offer, you're the HR person comes back and says, here's our offer. It's $50,000 a year, and you were saying, well, I was hoping for 55. The HR person says, well, our top cap on this is really $50,000. You're a really great candidate, so we wanted to offer you the top of the range right away. Something that you can ask about maybe is, can you negotiate for extra vacation time or something like that? It may not be possible, but it never hurts to ask. And then the last thing I will mention is, and this is more for farther down the line, you should be aware that many states nowadays, last I counted, there were 17 different states. Many states have laws against prospective employers asking you about your salary history. This can be both a good thing and a bad thing. It can be a good thing if you are on the lower end of the pay scale. If you're coming from nonprofit and you're moving to an industry that has generally higher pay, the new company is not going to be able to tie your new, they're not going to be able to lowball you because you're coming from someplace where your salary is lower. The downside is that they won't know if your salary is much higher and it goes kind of beyond the range that you're looking for. They might ask you what range you're looking for, and if you share with them, well, my salary is X, that's one thing, but they are not, in many cases, they're not allowed to ask you. So that was a lot. I'm going to now kind of completely switch gears and talk about some basic financial literacy concepts. So once you get that first job, or even before you get that first job, things that are kind of important to take a look at. Um, One thing that is super important that can be terrifying to everybody is this concept of budgeting. How do I come up with a budget? You know, keep in mind, budget does not have to be a scary word. Budget is basically keeping track of how much money you have coming in versus how much money you have going out, and kind of being aware of where it's all going. There are some people who like to put together spreadsheets and get really detailed. There are other people who just kind of like to keep a running tab of what's going on in terms of what they have in a checking account, a savings account, versus what their upcoming expenses are going to be like, that kind of a thing. Once you get that first job, though, is a good time to kind of maybe take a more in-depth look at what all is going on. How much money do you really have coming in now? What are your financial obligations? Do you have, are you going to have a car payment now because you need that car to get to your job, or can you stick with public transportation? Are you going to live out on your own, or are you going to live with your parents for a while and save some money? So how much do you have to budget for rent? Um, Other things to keep in mind, if you are working for someplace where the dress code is a little bit less flexible and you're going to have to wear suits every day, how much you're going to have to spend on professional attire and dry cleaning and those kinds of things. That can all add up and get pretty expensive. The other thing to take into account is, once you get that first paycheck, I don't know how many of you have had jobs at this point, but those of you who have, you're going to have a certain amount taken out for taxes. Now, if you just have a part-time job and you're not making a whole lot of money, that amount isn't going to be a whole lot. But once you have a regular salary, especially as you get higher up on the pay scale, you're probably going to be pretty shocked as to how much is actually taken out for taxes. The good thing is there are a number of tools out there. If you Google W4 calculator or tax calculator or something, it can help you determine how much you're going to have to take into account for taxes to know how much your take home pay is going to be. Once you have your take home pay, figure out how much you need to allocate for things like rent, transportation, all of that kind of stuff. And then the next thing you probably want to think about is your savings. Number one thing, and hopefully you have heard this from a number of different places before, is think about your emergency fund. What happens if, something happens, there's a financial crisis, and everybody's getting laid off? Do you have enough money in an emergency fund to cover a few months worth of expenses? Experts say anywhere between 3 and 6 months. If you don't have 3 and 6 months, start somewhere. Can you save $25 a paycheck, $50 a paycheck into a short-term emergency fund so that that money is there when you need it? Another thing to consider is your short versus your long-term goals. Short-term goals being something like that emergency fund, saving up to buy a car. Um, if you are interested in buying a house within the next, 5, 10 years, what can you save towards a down payment versus what your long-term goals are? Maybe that long-term goal is a down payment for a house. So you want to start saving now so that, 10, 15 years from now, you have a down payment saved up. Um, and then another thing to consider is your debt versus credit. So everybody here probably is going to end up with some kind of student loan debt. So how do you balance that, paying off your debt versus still saving a little bit of money? That can be very overwhelming for people. Um, some general concepts that you can keep in mind are, if you have accounts that you're paying interest on, so, let's say you have more than one student loan, one of them is at 4% interest, but one of them is at 10% interest. Or you have a credit card and one of them is, and you've gotten into the cycle of you're not paying off your balances in full, and so you've got these interest payments. First of all, try and avoid that in the first place. But if you fall into that category, there's nothing that you can do to avoid it. One credit card has a 15% interest rate and the other one has a 25% interest rate. Of course, you want to make the minimum payments on the accounts with the lower interest rates, but you want to try and pay off those accounts with the higher interest rates faster, because in the long run, that will help you to pay less to be able to borrow that money. I hope all of that makes sense. Last thing I will point out on this basic financial literacy piece is, don't forget about free tools available for you. I say the SAP, the Student Assistance Program, or when you start working, your employee assistance program. Or right now, if your parents are working, they may have an employee assistance program that you can use as a family member of theirs. I have a link here that's embedded in this presentation to the student assistance program that's available to you guys through Aetna. Um, and I can send this presentation to anybody who wants to, just email me. Um, Generally, these types of programs will provide free sessions to you where you can talk to a financial person. They can help you work up a budget so you can look at what you've got available for savings and versus what kinds of expenses you have, and all of that. So last big topic, saving for retirement. Again, this is going to seem like it is very, very far off. Being that most of you guys, I assume, are 18 or 19. Some of you guys probably aren't even at the age where you are eligible to participate in any kind of a retirement plan. That's generally going to be 21. Some individual retirement accounts are a little bit different, but this is something that you can certainly start thinking about. Um, the biggest um, the biggest piece of guidance that I think anyone could give you, and something that has really become my mantra, is save early and often and stay the course. I'm going to date myself. I have been doing employee benefits for probably about 15 years now, maybe a little bit longer. But I was around in 2008, the last time there was some kind of recession. And I was around when everybody saw their retirement accounts take a big hit. I mean, people were losing 25% of their account value, and everybody was freaking out. I can tell you with all kinds of assurance that anytime in history that has happened, the market has always bounced back. So don't freak, once you get there, your money is in these accounts. Don't freak out that your retirement account is losing value. It's going to bounce back, especially if you have, 20, 30, 40, 50 years until retirement. So just stay the course, stay the course, stay the course, save early and often. Um, Compounding interest is your friend, which is why you want to start saving early. If you start saving money when you are first eligible, even if it's only a little bit, you are going to be, by the time you hit retirement age, you will have hundreds of thousands of dollars more saved than somebody who starts 10 years later than you do. Um, Once you are eligible to participate in your employer's program, you definitely want to take advantage of that. Employers have different match structures. Some places may match only 1 or 2% of what you put into their program. Others may have a more generous match. Whatever you do, you want to save at least enough money to get the full employer match. For example, at IIT, we have a very generous match here. Anyone who is eligible for the 403B plan, we have a 403B, which is like the nonprofit version of a 401k. Those plans are incredibly similar. So they're pretty much the same thing from an end user standpoint. Um, IIT has a very generous match. For people who participate in the plan but do not contribute anything themselves, IIT is going to contribute 5% of their salary to a retirement account for them. Now, the generosity or the further generosity comes in where people who contribute 1% of their salary, now they're going to get 6% that IIT contributes. If they contribute 2, IIT is going to contribute 7, up to if they contribute 4%, IIT is going to contribute 9%. So for anybody who is not contributing anything to get that 5%, what they're really doing is they're leaving an extra 4% of their salary in free money out there. That money is not going to their account because they're not contributing. Um, for a lot of people, maybe they're worried about a hit to their paycheck. And I'll talk a little bit about traditional and pre-tax accounts later on, but it's really, in most cases, it's not going to be as much of a hit as they think it is. And I always like it's the thing that I hate the most, seeing people leave that free money out there. If somebody's going to give you money, take it, take as much as you can. Um, so that's your employer's program. There's also there's this concept of individual retirement accounts. You may have seen the acronym IRA. Many individuals, and most of the time you have to be 21, but there are some cases where you can contribute um, before you turn 21 if you are filing your own tax return. So if you're interested in doing that, talk to a tax expert. But there are these individual retirement accounts that a lot of people are eligible to contribute to. So you can save outside of your employer's plan into this extra retirement account. Um, a lot of IRAs are more flexible when it comes to a traditional versus a Roth option. Your traditional option is going to be a pre-tax option. Most 401ks and 403bs are going to be exclusively that pre-tax option. So that means that anything that you decide to contribute from your salary is going to be contributed before taxes are taken into account. So it's lowering your taxable income. It's a really good benefit there as well. Some plans allow Roth options. That's an after-tax option. And I know a lot of people who open their own individual retirement accounts use that Roth option. And what that means is that you contribute on an after-tax basis. The difference at the outset of retirement is that you are contributing after taxes are taken into account. Now, when you get to retirement age and you start pulling money out of those accounts, on the traditional or pre-tax side, because you didn't pay taxes when the money went in, you're going to pay taxes as you take your distribution. On the Roth side, because you paid taxes on that money before it went in, when you take distributions, you are not paying taxes. So a lot of people like to have some money in each of those buckets so that they have a little bit of tax diversification once they get to retirement age. Um, Something also a little bit higher level is when you start saving retirement, watch out for fees and expense ratios. At a very high level, you know, if you look at different funds available to you, the higher the expense ratio, the more it's actually going to cost you. They may be slightly hidden because generally that money is kind of pulled out of your account without you really even knowing it. If it's got a higher expense ratio, that means that a little bit more money is going to be diverted to cover the fund expenses, which ultimately translates to a little bit less money for you at the outset. Um, so you want to pay attention to those expense ratios. Um, Again, that's higher level, but it's that information can be easy to find if you know what you're looking for. Which leads me to my last point, which is take advantage of free advice and education. If you have no idea where to find where the expense ratio is, if you are part of an employer's plan that has all kinds of different stocks and bonds and money markets and index funds and actively managed or passively managed, and you have no idea what any of that means, you're not alone because most people don't. Most people are terrified of this kind of thing. I guarantee that your employer sponsored plan is going to have plenty of free advice tools for you. In most cases, you can call up the participant services line and say, I'm brand new to this plan. I have no idea what I'm doing. Can you help me figure out what I should invest in? And they will do that. They'll help you come up with what you might be comfortable, what types of funds you might be comfortable investing in. They will probably have some tools available to you to help you ascertain what your comfort level is going to be. And then your employer is probably going to have regular education sessions for you. Here at IIT, we do from time to time, we offer free free kind of webinars and workshops that I'll announce in IIT today. We also do free one-on-one retirement planning sessions through our retirement plan vendors so that people can actually sit down with an educational consultant, financial planner, who can take a look at their overall financial picture and say and let them know whether or not they're on the right track for retirement, or let them know, if you continue to save this amount, here is your projected income in retirement. But if you bump up your savings a little bit more, then your savings are probably going to grow by this much, and here's what you're going to have available to you. So that free advice and education is always going to be there for you. Definitely take advantage of that. Um, with that, I know we're pretty close to time here, so I apologize for not leaving any more than 3 minutes, but um, I wanted to make sure everybody had my contact information. It's right there on the slide. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you would like as well. If you would like a copy of these slides, email me. And if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take them now. Or if you want to set up a time to talk later, I'm happy to do that as well.
Thank you so much, Victoria. Cameron, thank you so much. I just saw your comment. I enjoyed having you. We did. So anyone have any last minute questions for Victoria? I know that this is a lot of information to mull over. You're welcome to drop them in the chat or just unmute yourself. And Victoria, I will probably email you and grab the presentation if you don't mind, and have the mentors share it with their students.
Oh,
It does look like Cameron has a question. Go ahead, Cameron.
Will there be a second year seminar next year?
There is supposed to be a second year experience that will have certain activities associated with it. I don't know if there will be a seminar just yet, Cameron. So just be on the lookout for communication about that.
Okay. Are you going to host the second year stuff as well?
It will actually be Rachel Hirsch, who is the director of campus life, and she and I are going to be working together. So you may see me occasionally. Yes.
My favorite part of first year seminar was when we talked about being positive.
Awesome. Yeah, I enjoyed that as well.
And when I see people happy, regardless of their age, even if the video was like, even if like a photo or a video, even if it's from several years ago, it gives me power.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Well, friends, it is 1:20. So that is it. It has been a pleasure to have all of you this year in first year seminar. Victoria, thank you so much for joining us today. And friends, like I said, I will have our first year mentor send out this presentation so that you have it as a resource. And if you want to sit down and chat, Victoria is available. So just contact her. All right, everyone, that's all I've got for you. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
All right.